Good evening, and thank you for joining. Drew? Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to welcome everyone to another in-person and virtual meeting. Board members and some town staff should be visible on your video. Also, I'd like to remind board members of two things. Please mute your microphone while you are not speaking, and please do not use the WebEx chat function. This virtual meeting will have public comments. The time limit for public comments during the public comment portion will be 3 minutes. If necessary, town staff is available and prepared to confirm and attempt to resolve any technical issue. If you are having technical problems and unable to participate meaningfully in this meeting, please contact Robert Bishop. Robert Bishop's email and phone number is on tonight's agenda. We appreciate your patience with this format. As with our regular in-person meetings, we hope to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue. I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Romero, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee LeKind.
Here.
Trustee Romanello.
Here.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
And Trustee Unruh.
Here.
Okay, before us we have a agenda and a consent agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda? I would like to make a modification, moving discussion item 6 to before discussion item 9.
Second.
I'm just looking for agreements or a disagreement.
Agree.
Agree.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the modified agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Unruh.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Okay, first item on the agenda, presentation, code enforcement. Mr. Cox.
Yes, sir. There we go. Mayor Wilson, Board of Trustees, I thank you guys for having us here today. How's that? Thank you for having us here today. I prepared a small code enforcement presentation via PowerPoint. I don't know if it was included in all your packets or not. And if you guys have a chance to look over the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So before I start, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Evan Cox. I'm the Code Enforcement Police Service Specialist, and I have an extensive background in law enforcement. over nearly 15 years of law enforcement altogether. So if you guys don't have any questions for me in the beginning, I'll go through the presentation, or we can wait and I can go through it at the end, whichever everyone prefers.
Go ahead and go over the presentation, please.
Okay. So this presentation is going to cover October 1st through present day. Once I prepared the presentation was about a week ago. So the stats are, there's a couple of numbers that are inflated, but it's minuscule at best. So first thing I'm going to be talking about is overall code enforcement duties. Looks like my slides are out of order here. So these are the duties that were defined when I was hired as just the code enforcement officer by Mr. Robert Bishop. And I know they're small and I had to copy and paste and there's a lot of them. So I apologize greatly for how small the print is, and it's small as well on mine. So some of the code enforcement duties that were given to me were listed above, and basically it's I can just look on my tiny little print down here. There we go. And I'm sorry I can't make it bigger, but it's basically the general code enforcement description for any code enforcement officer in the state of Colorado, defined by the Code Enforcement Board of officials. So when I first got hired, myself and Robert Bishop and the town manager and the interim chief, Chief Burke, went over my job description, and they said, first, we're going to educate, and then we're going to try to gain voluntary compliance. And then if the voluntary compliance is not adhered to, then we'll actually get into the enforcement aspect of that. Touching on the enforcement aspect, it's hard to enforce something when we don't have SOPs and policies for code enforcement at this time. And myself and the town attorney, we will be working here in the near future to establish policies, concerns, complaints, and just how we start to finish code enforcement, if you will. Since interim Chief Burke is gone, he actually changed my job title to police service specialist, since my background is in police and it's not in code enforcement. So up on the screen now is duties that were giving to me after code enforcement. And these duties include training coordinator, equipment quartermaster, fleet and vehicle coordinator, investigative support. And I also have written several police grants, and I'm a grant manager for those police grants via post. So if you'd like me to explain any of those duties, I can at this time, or I can explain during the questions section. So with Chief Burke vision, that's what he enlisted my help for. When we brought on Chief Sean Hemingway, he forced me to give him my resume, and my duties tripled. So during the emergency of COVID, I was, I guess, enlisted, I'll say, to help with procurement and help with logistics and things like that I've done in the past in Texas during hurricanes and major SWAT events and things like that. So up on the screen now, you will see my duties during COVID-19 starting, I think it was March 14th is when we actually started a COVID preparedness plan. So I also included a pie graph of obviously October 1st, 2019 through today. And this is kind of my allocation of times, what I've been working on, and it looks like it hasn't been updated. So long story short, it looks like roughly I have been doing 60% for just the covert or COVID emergency management plan. So that's procuring PPE for the town and the PD, making sure the burn rates and the cycle rates of everything are on par for a town our size. Scheduling and just decontamination processes and coming up with SOPs and training bulletins and so on and so forth. And about 20% would be training and procurement. I'm also a firearms instructor and instructor in various police topics. So I've been helping build training plans, helping train our troops and things like that. And then 20% of code enforcement. And of that 20% of code enforcement, I don't know if I put it on here. Let's see. So of that 20%, this is kind of the code enforcement breakdown stats. 52 complaints were generated via our town website. And this is the only really positive way right now we have to track code enforcement complaints, because they come to me through word of mouth, sticky notes, I mean, a slew of other things. So right now, as we speak, 52 complaints were brought to me via the town website. Of those complaints, I would say 30% of those code complaints via the website were out of our jurisdiction. So they were in neighboring El Paso County, predominantly Woodmore. Woodmore thinks we're Monument. They email me, call me, just all kind of stuff. So that statistic is a little skewed because so many complaints come from Woodmore residents to our town site thinking that they belong to the town of Monument. So since I've been code enforcement, this is my most common code violations. Sign violations, which is insane. There's, I believe, over 30 definitions of sign for the town. And some of them are vague, some of them are right on point. They're just all over the place. So the town attorney and I are going to also try to narrow the scope of our sign debacle, is what I'm going to call it. Snow route violations. I started October 1st. I had a couple complaints, concerns, comments about snow, and especially on sidewalks and neighborhoods, if it's HOA enforceable or if it's us enforceable. And then tall weeds and grass. I fielded a couple tall weeds and grass complaints as well. So there, I just included a couple definitions of our signs up here, and those are our most, I say, offending. You know, you got your regular sign, which means, as the definitions up there, the bandit sign, the freestanding sign, and the outdoor advertising. So I've collected over 100 signs, just everywhere. You name it, every intersection in the town, it seems like I've collected signs that were non-permitted through Miss Debbie here or anybody else. Nobody gave permits for the signs. Of those signs, I've called probably 80% of the people, and nobody's called me back to pick up their signs. Nobody returns my phone calls. I've called everybody. I've emailed the legal departments, especially college hunks hauling junk. They're the biggest. So I can't even read that. So snow route, same thing. I work with patrol a lot. When there's heavy snow, they tell me where the snow routes are, you know, being blocked, or they'll ask them if they're out in the field, or I'll ask them if I'm out in the field to move their vehicle so that snow can be removed properly. Tall grass, 100% compliance. If your grass is tall and I received a complaint, knock on the door, phone call, email, it's cut the next day. So that's not really a big deal. I've mailed a couple certified letters. One was downtown, which was a residence operating as a business, and vice versa. So we finally got that figured out. I'm working on cleaning up a house on Jefferson Street now that has 15 cars in the driveway and spilling over into the easements. Chickens. I know it's a big topic before me. I've had several complaints of chickens, and I have found 0 chickens in the town of Monument where the complaints took place. So I figured I'd throw that slide in. And again, myself and Andy will be working on moving forward to advance the code enforcement procedures and policies, and how we're going to handle whatever comes up. A lot of my code complaints, which is the second little block up there, are building code. And they ask me, you know, is this deck up to code? My neighbor's building a gazebo. He doesn't have a building permit license. So I refer a lot of people to Pikes Peak Regional Building. And unfortunately, they are closed down and nobody is ever in the office. So I would like to acquire some type of code enforcement tracking software. Like I said, there's sticky notes, emails, word of mouth. It's just all over the place all the time. And it's hard to track anything when you have all those different means of communication. And that's it. Any questions for me or Sergeant Malikian?
I'd just like to make one comment, Mayor and the board. You know, when we hired Evan, I think the expectations were that he would spend a lot more time on code enforcement and stuff like that. But also when Interim Chief Burke was here, the board and Chief Burke, I think, convinced the board that it would really be better for him to spend more of his time on some of the police officer or police duties that the sergeants were doing. We had sergeants in the office a lot, and they were required to be in the office to do a lot of the training and a lot of the paperwork. And so Evan's been able to take over some of that training, been able to take over that paperwork, and now our sergeants can actually be out in the field commanding their troops just like they should be.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I believe when we set out to hire a code enforcement officer, it was to be about 50-50.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question. You said that you don't have any tracking software and yet people are submitting complaints over the website. Are they just submitting emails, or is there a form, or is there any software behind the website?
So there is tracking software on the website. It's not, everything doesn't go through the website is what I'm trying to say. So if you submit, and I don't know how you submit, say, I'm assuming you go on the website, you click on a link and you follow the tabs, and you can have complaints for code enforcement or the water department or the streets department or things like that. And that's the only tracking system we have available. And if we can send everybody through that tracking system, it's great. However, it doesn't work that way. So it's hard to track phone calls and emails and sticky notes on my door and sticky notes on my desk and things like that, because I can't submit a tracking sheet through the website. A citizen can.
So
Is there an application that could be used by town staff that fields the various methods that they're contacted about these violations, where it could be centralized so that you could see all of them at once?
I'm sure there is, but I'm not a computer expert by any means, and I can do some research on that and hopefully come up with something that a comparable city is using.
Because it seems to me that if you're educating people, it would be valuable to have a system that tracks these complaints and that you've reached out to the person that's in violation of the code and have gone through the process of keeping logs on, you know, the communications and if any fines have been imposed.
Correct. Yeah, that would be fantastic. And what I do is I usually send an email or a follow-up email, and that's the only tracking I have outside of the town website.
I would think that just basic Excel spreadsheet would keep track of who you've contacted, who's complained, what you did, you know, any sort of follow-up. Are you looking for something more than that?
So there's tracking software. It's just like a police tracking software. Excel spreadsheet's great, but they also suck at the same time. I mean, you can build an Excel spreadsheet for XYZ, but you would have to have 60 boxes on this Excel spreadsheet, when the town site, you can click on one thing and put your comment, and then I can respond to your comment via the website. And the website tracks all, like how many days, you know, the comment went from the complaint to an addressment or vice versa. So an Excel spreadsheet would work, and I have one going. I've seen Excel spreadsheets used in the past, prior code enforcement officers, and it's just time, date, person, what the cause was. And I don't think that's sufficient to continuously track a problem, not on an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. You mentioned 52% of complaints were submitted. How many were identified by yourself?
So 52 complaints, not 52%.
Or, yeah, sorry, 52
Yes.
complaints.
So 52, are you going back, Drew? You want to go back? So 52 complaints were addressed. These were complaints that were not identified by me driving around. They were some of them were backyard chickens, and some of them, like I said, there's 30% of Woodmore, and I don't drive around Woodmore, so I wouldn't see the complaints that were generated of those 52% in another jurisdiction.
Okay, so how many have you identified?
Out of this 52 or in general?
Just in general?
Hundreds.
Hundreds, okay. Can you explain the permit process for signs or how that works, what you're looking for?
So in my limited knowledge of permits, to put a freestanding sign out or any sign of education is exempt, and so is politics or political signs. So in order to put a sign in the right of way, you would have to go through the city to obtain a permit to place said sign. I don't believe you have to go through said permit process for educational purposes like soccer tryouts for Palmer Lake or election signs, basically, political signs.
Okay. Is there any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, we thank you for your presentation. And we'll move forward.
Thank you very much.
Just as a mode of direction from the board, when would you like code enforcement presentations of status?
I don't think it would be more, I don't think it'd be necessary more than maybe biannually.
Biannual, that's good. We can definitely accomplish that.
Do any other board members have a suggestion? One thing I wanted to mention was when we did the 50-50, it was because the majority of summer should be spent on code enforcement. I know the summer's been a little different, but I believe in the past we've had a lot more numbers than this.
Yeah, we had a contractor in the past. We didn't have a dedicated employee. And I think this year, probably COVID-19 has really affected our code enforcement efforts. And so I'd say he spent a lot of time that we would have had to assign another employee to, probably another police officer who wouldn't be out in the field policing the town. And so we were able to use Evan to do a lot of our COVID-19. He's been on a team that's been working very comprehensively on our COVID-19 issues, not only giving us grant opportunities, but doing the reports that we're required to report back to the county, to FEMA, and everything like that. So he's been a great assist on that.
You haven't had to do any Excel spreadsheets in that?
No, not in that one.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 2020, an ordinance approving the rezoning, annexation, and sketch plan of planned development for Conexus Phase 2 and 3. Ms. Flynn.
Just waiting for it to come on. Good evening, trustees and Mayor Wilson. Ordinance 2020, Conexus Phase 2 and 3, rezone and sketch PD plan. The project location is southeast of Monument and southwest of the intersection of I-25 of downtown Monument and southwest of the intersection of I-25 and Highway 105 2nd Street. It's approximately 146 acres in size. It's the remaining part of Conexus development. It's rezoned from Regency Park PID to PD. The sketch plan is a conceptual plan. The phasing will take place from south to north. Conexus Phase 2 and 3 sketch PD plan proposed land uses are a mix of commercial, civic, office, light industrial, multi-use, residential high and medium density, open space, parks, trails, drainage, and right-of-way. It's a live, work, play environment. The trail to connect to the development to regional Santa Fe Trail and an informal park area. Next is the land use table, which has areas A through E, and A through C are the land uses which I just described. Area D is the open space, park, trails, and drainage area, which is 16.5% of the whole site. The access to Santa Fe Trail crossings. There was a memo of understanding in 2008, which the landowner made with El Paso County granting 6 access points along Old Denver Road. Conexus Phase 1 has 1 trail crossing. Santa Fe Park has 2 trail crossings. And this project, Conexus Phase 2 and 3, will have 3 trail crossings. The new southbound left turn lanes and northbound right turn lanes will be installed at each access point on Old Denver Road. Next is the sketch plan, which is conceptual, which shows the areas A through D. The future land use map, which identifies the site as business campus with parks, recreation, trails along the drainage ways to the north and south. Areas D and E are consistent with the parks, recreation, and trails. The business campus takes the existing PID zoning and expands it. Only difference is the inclusion of commercial and residential uses. And these are a list of our referrals who reviewed and commented on the project. Planning Commission hearing was on August 12, 2020. 3 residents spoke against the project via handwritten letter with 20 signatures and 2 emails. The handwritten letter with the 20 signatures was concerned about the increased congestion and lose the walking trail and open space of the area, which will also increase noise and cause the value of homes to depreciate. Email number 1 concerned about the proposed number of road crossings of the new Santa Fe Trail, and email number 2 the stripping away the character that makes Monument a unique and special place to live. Continuing with this path will make our town just another overly populated community. And that was just a summary of what their letters entailed. The Planning Commission voted 4-1 to recommend approval. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Ordinance 2020-2020 Conexus Phase 2 and 3 Rezone and Sketch PD Plan based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval. Next, Andrea Barlow from NES will continue her presentation for this project.
Good evening.
There you go, sorry. Rezone of the 146-acre parcel from Regency Park PID, which is planned industrial development, to planned development, and a sketch plan which diversifies the uses proposed to include industrial, commercial, multifamily residential on the entire parcel. So the location you are familiar with, it falls just short of 2nd Street. So there is a parcel between the northern part of this area and the and 2nd Street in separate ownership, just to clarify that. And then to the south is the existing approved Conexus Phase 1 and Santa Fe Park. So I want to talk a little bit about the zoning history of the site, just to give some context, because I think in reading, and I have read all the neighbors' comments, there's some context lacking here. So this area was part of an area that was actually approved on a sketch plan in 1981 when it was part of El Paso County. It was called the Gary Center and Melody Estates sketch plan. And as you can see from the plan, it showed the entire area between I-25 and Old Denver Road as industrial land use. So that was in 1981. So the property was annexed into the town in 1987 as Regency Park, part of a much wider area, which includes substantial acreage on the east side of the highway as well. And it continued to show that the property was planned for industrial land uses. And the sketch plan at that time showed between 2nd Street and Baptist Road 13 access points on Old Denver Road into the property. And I would also point out that the trail, based on information I've received from El Paso County Parks, their historic files date this section of trail to 1983. So that predated this plan. So the trail was in existence at the time. And it was when the county took ownership of the abandoned right-of-way. So I just want to clarify some points that were made in the neighbor comments. This is not a historic trail. It is not the historic Santa Fe Trail. It is named for the Atchison Topeka Santa Fe Railroad that the county took ownership. So it's not the St. Louis to Santa Fe Historic Trail, just to clarify that. Town of Monument Ordinance 1387, which was the zoning for this property, confirmed the PID zoning and identified the permitted and conditional land uses, which are those that are currently set out in the code. And this PID zoning is continued currently on the zoning map for the town. So that purple area between I-25 and Old Denver Road is Regency Park PID, which is an industrial zoning. So I want to clarify that while the property is currently undeveloped, it is at no point been planned to be open space. It is always planned to be industrially developed. So the existing zoning, as I notice, is PID. There's a maximum height allowed with that existing zoning of 90 feet on this side of the highway. And that this plan indicates the areas that have already been approved for a rezone in the Conexus Phase 1 and Santa Fe Park as recently as July this year. And the reason for these rezonings is because the code requires us to rezone. It doesn't allow you to move forward with a currently planned PID zone. It requires that zoning to be changed to a PD. And in that, we get to define our uses more clearly. In doing that, we've taken the opportunity to broaden that range of uses to include some more commercial uses, lighter industrial uses, moving away from some of the heavier industrial uses that are allowed, and introducing some residential. So these are the existing zoning permitted uses for the Regency Park PID, a number of fairly heavy uses, including bottling and food processing, some heavier manufacturing, and so on. And we are looking at, like I say, carrying some of those uses forward, but not really the heavier industrial uses. So our site acreage here is 146 acres. We're continuing that maximum building height of 90 feet, although it is not anticipated that the buildings will be 90 feet in all cases, but we just want to retain that provision in the current zoning. And the setbacks are 50 feet, the building setbacks 50 feet along I-25, and then 25 feet along Old Denver Road. And that shouldn't say Baptist Road in there, I apologize. And here are our proposed uses, as Debbie described, a range of commercial, office, civic uses, light industrial, multi-use, and by that we mean a building or a site that contains a number of different uses. So it could include residential and commercial or office, and to give the opportunity for some live work units, that type of thing. And then we are also introducing residential high or medium density in this area. So those figures on the right, in the right-hand column, should not be totaled. They're either or in terms of the area that we anticipate being for residential. And then our areas D and F are the open space drainage areas that relate to the two creeks. So we have Teach Out Creek to the south on the southern part of the property, which also includes mouse habitat. And then Dirty Woman Creek goes in through area D in the north, and that also has mouse habitat. So some fairly substantial habitat areas which we are preserving. Site access, as noted, we are proposing 3 access points. They are not set in stone in terms of their actual location, although some thought has been given to them in terms of spacing, in terms of the topography of Old Denver Road. It does undulate somewhat, and we've tried to put the access points in areas where they have good site visibility, and also where appropriate, line them up with existing access points to the west. There will be southbound left turn lanes and northbound right turn lanes at the site access points to facilitate decel and accel lanes and to, deceleration lanes, and to provide a segregated left-hand turn lane out of the traffic. So as has been mentioned, the Santa Fe Trail crossings, we originally had a plan which showed 13 or allowed 13 crossings from Old Denver Road across the trail. In 2008, the county, and I would also like to emphasize that the trail is county owned. The strip of land, the 50-foot strip of land that the trail sits in is owned by El Paso County. It is not under Town of Monument control. And that MOU was in exchange for a grant of additional right-of-way for Baptist Road improvements and also the Baptist Road trailhead. So where the Baptist Road trailhead now sits, that was originally part of this land ownership, and in exchange for that, an agreement was made to secure 6 crossing points of the trail with El Paso County. And El Paso County, I would point out, have supported all these projects and in terms of the number of crossings that have been proposed. So these 6 crossings are not all on this site. That's another thing I wanted to emphasize. We have 3 in this project, and the other 3 have already been approved on projects to the south. And the only requirement that El Paso County has is that we meet their specific design for the crossings. And this is an example of what was approved with Conexus Phase 1. So Conexus Phase 1 is the area, the 23 acres right in the middle of this entire stretch. And it just provided a safe pedestrian crossing with flashing lights and so on, just so the pedestrian, obviously, by state law, has the right of way, but it makes it a more secure and safe crossing point. So the comprehensive plan, I'm just going to briefly go over this. The main part of the site is business campus. We are looking at incorporating many of the uses that the business campus designation in the comprehensive plan identified, but expanding it to include some more commercial and residential uses in trying to get more of a mixed use on the site. And then the parks and recreation identifiers on the comprehensive plan, which are the green areas, have been maintained in the open space areas. And then we also have a number of policies, which I think you're familiar with by now, because I tend to refer to similar ones, but moving away from single land uses to more mixed areas that include the ability to provide a balance of live, work, and play environments, and locating major traffic generators where they are on future collectors or existing collectors, which are Old Denver Road is an example of that. And also opportunities to provide more varied housing choice and opportunities in the town is also a main function of the comprehensive plan. So the sketch PD plan review criteria, we believe we've hit all those requirements of providing appropriate open space, recreation, and parks. We have trails in our open space areas where allowed per the mouse habitat restrictions. We have a mix of uses incorporating some higher density development to provide more residential development to provide more choice and affordability. And we have protected the areas that have any significant vegetation on the site. So in summary, the municipal code is requiring us to rezone, which we actually see as a benefit because it allows us to move away from, like I say, just the pure industrial uses and heavier industrial uses to get more of an integrated mix of uses, which we feel is more compatible with the surrounding uses and provides more opportunities for the town. And it incorporates the previously permitted uses and expands on that. And it's a mixed use development that conforms to the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, and it meets the review criteria for the sketch plan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And
before we start questions, Mike, do you want to expand on the road crossings?
Yes, sir. Mayor and board, a little background. The current Santa Fe trail alignment, which runs adjacent to Old Denver Road, is a 6 to 10 foot wide gravel trail with a north-south alignment located in the historic right-of-way of the abandoned Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad right-of-way. The gravel trail is very degraded right now. We went out and looked at it, with sparse gravel remaining on a dirt subgrade. The current access, like our consultant said, current access and Santa Fe Trail crossing agreements. There's currently an access and trail crossing memorandum of understanding dated back to January 14, 2008, in place with El Paso County, which has jurisdiction over the Santa Fe Regional Trail, allowing 3 access points crossing over the Santa Fe Trail into the property areas designated in phase 2 and 3 of the Conexus project. We are proposing to realign the trail. We're working with the county, we're working with the developers. The developers have been very amenable about the relocation. They paid for a design. They've offered to match a GOCO grant. We're applying for a GOCO grant, and hopefully we'll get that in time. But we're also working with the county. We've met with the county commissioner, we met with the county administrator, we met with their planning director, and we also met with their parks director. The proposed Santa Fe Trail realignment is to the east side of phase 2 and 3 of the Conexus project along existing I-25 right-of-way. The potential conflicts between the Santa Fe Trail pedestrian and bicycle users and future auto and truck traffic at the 3 public roadway trail crossings locations into phase 2 and 3 of the Conexus projects would be eliminated. So you'd eliminate those crossings, no matter how safe they're designed. We still feel like that it would be better to relocate the Santa Fe Trail to the east side of the development along their required landscape easement. This is a joint effort. Like I said, the Town of Monument, the Conexus project developer, and El Paso County are collaborating on the Santa Fe Trail relocation effort. The Town of Monument and El Paso County are applying for a Great Outdoor Colorado State Parks and Trail grant. The Town of Monument has been communicating with area residents and Santa Fe Trail users about minimizing the trail and future public roadway access into the Conexus project. The Conexus developer will participate financially and will likely complete the actual Santa Fe Trail relocation construction work. El Paso County is reviewing the Santa Fe Trail realignment design and construction drawings. We have a meeting with their parks director coming up, and we hopefully will get this through the county. Like Andrea said, this is county property. They own it. We can't relocate it without their approval. And so we're working every day. Staff is working on this, and thanks to Mike and Andrea, they've been working on this daily. I mean, look, during Labor Day, I was receiving emails and stuff, and so they're working hard. Steve Shucks agreed to pay for a lot of this. So the stakeholder effort on this is amazing for a town our size, for them to jump in. The benefits to the community is once the Santa Fe Trail relocation is complete, area residents and regional Santa Fe Trail users will be able to continue to use this trail without vehicle conflicts in phases 2 and 3 of the new Conexus commercial development. We started this process, and I think Andrea was there when the Planning Commission kind of, looked up and said, hey, this is an issue. Yes, you've been approved by the county. They've got, I think you had 13 access points at one time from Baptist Road to 2nd Street. Can you imagine having 13 commercial access points across the Santa Fe Trail within that small of an area? That night, I spoke with Andrea and I said, what can we do? And Andrea suggested, well, you can go to the county and talk to the county. There were some other issues that we brought up. And so I think me and you met with the developer, and we started talking to them about what are our options. And they jumped right in and said, well, we'll be glad to be part of the solution. And so they were, and they still are. And so we definitely enjoy a great relationship with them that probably is going to help us with this solution. Now, the one thing I want the board to remember is that this property probably isn't going to be developed for 2 to 3 years. Is that correct? Somewhere in that? Yeah, at least. And so we have the time to be able to find a correct solution for this. We have the time to work with the county. We have the time to work with GOCO. our opportunity right now is just to make GoCo aware. That's what we want to do. We're going in there and we're going to apply for a grant, and we're going to make them aware that there's a section of the Santa Fe Trail that needs to be relocated for the safety of our citizens, for the safety of, I mean, if you think about this trail, people from all over Colorado use this trail. And we talked to one of the members of GoCo, and he lives in Colorado Springs. He uses this section of the trail all the time. He's all for it. We just got to check the boxes and we got to do the right thing. We may not get the grant this year, but we are going to open everybody's eyes to the fact that we need funding for this. We hope GoCo approves this, but if they don't do it this year, we hope to get it next year. And we have the time. I can't stress that enough. We have the time to do this the right way.
Okay. Now, I just want to reiterate off your comments. We're driving this this trail relocation on behalf of our citizens, and the developer is helping us to do that, but it is not our decision nor the developer's decision to move it.
Exactly. It's the county's decision.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up to board questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The trail relocation would be against I-25?
It would actually be in the landscape right of way that is required for the developer to have between their property or between their development and I-25.
And what would be used, I assume, and I could be wrong, but there would be some form of barrier for noise mitigation so that people using the trail are not going to be overwhelmed by traffic zooming by at 75 miles or like 100 miles an hour right there?
One of the things that we looked at when we started talking about this, I use the trail a lot, and we started talking to some of the trail users. Today, it runs right along Old Denver Road. Old Denver Road is a 2-lane county road today. We have plans to widen it to a 4-lane road. If you continue along the Santa Fe Trail to the south, it goes right along I-25 in between the Air Force and I-25. The great thing about Monument is where we go along the Santa Fe Trail, if we relocated it to the east side of the development, it is actually above I-25. And so the other thing that I'd like to make a point about is today it is a road that just goes along Old Denver Road. There's no trees, there's nothing. And so the plan is to put it in a landscape easement that would have trees, benches, possibly some workout areas and stuff like that. And so I think the relocation will be in a lot better place than it is today.
Okay, next question.
We're just rezoning this, not approving any kind of a trail movement at this point. Correct?
We won't be approving a trail
Well,
movement.
no, county would do that.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So we're just doing
All
the
we're doing is
rezoning.
taking it from PID to PD at this
That's
point.
right.
Correct. Additional questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, seeing this is a public hearing, I will open it up for public comment. Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comment online? Okay, if you are online and you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. Ms. Flynn, do we have anybody in the hall waiting to address this topic? Okay. I'll give it another minute for public comment. Okay, seeing no public comment at this point, I will close the public hearing portion of this ordinance and bring it back to the board for, oh. Okay, do we have a name? Go ahead and add him, and when the audio is resolved, we will allow the comment. Mr. Wells, please make your comment.
Yes, hello, it's Robert Wells.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just wondering why it was never considered that the developer would have, some other way of accessing the site, either from Baptist Road, continuing that entrance over there instead of cutting through all three locations is number one. And number two, I'm very concerned with the northern access point. That is at the top of the hill from Dirty Woman Creek. And living in the area, I've seen several times where it seems there's vehicle issues. And even though there is a right-hand turn lane there, I'm just very concerned with the safety of, if that's even going to be a pedestrian crossing. It is definitely a blind area. So two questions, that access point, and also why isn't the consensus considering some other way of accessing it instead of relocating the trail? Because it cuts off the access to all the neighborhoods along Old Denver Road.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments, Mr. Anderson? Okay. Would the applicant like to rebuttal on that comment?
Yeah, I can respond to those. A couple of the neighbors' comments did make the suggestion that there should be almost like a frontage road going from south to north. Now first of all, there are different developers for these areas as it is. It's no longer one comprehensive area, but there are drainage ways, fairly significant two drainage ways that cross the site. Teach Out Creek is the one to the south, and then also further north there's a no-name creek. And there is mouse habitat in those areas, so that makes it very challenging to actually cross those areas with a road that would run from the south to the north. And also, as I noted, that the northern parcel is in a completely separate ownership and has been for some time, so that connection to 2nd Street wouldn't be available either. So it was considered, but there are significant obstacles to be able to do that. And then the northern access point at the top of the hill, that was, as I indicated, they are preliminary access points. We will be studying them in much more detail when we come forward with our preliminary plans and looking at their alignment and visibility. Top of the hill is usually a better location to have an access point because it does afford you that visibility. And we will be adding, as I noted earlier, the left-hand turn lanes and right-hand turn lanes to segregate those cars that are turning into the development from the main flow of traffic. So that will create a safer environment for those turning points. So all those matters have been considered, but we will be reviewing the access points in more detail when we come forward with specific plans for development.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead and add her and let me know. Ms. Wright, go ahead. Okay, we're still waiting for audio to connect.
Hello.
Ms. Wright, go ahead.
Hello. I was curious about who exactly is presenting today, what their names are.
Okay. It is on the, oh, no, it's not. The presenter for this item was Debbie Flynn for Monument Planning Department and Angela Barlow for NES.
Great, thank you.
No other comments? Okay, at this point, we will close the public hearing portion of this ordinance, and we will bring it back to the board for further questions or motion.
I just have a quick question. You said now, if the county approves moving the trail, then this developer is willing to help out with, like you said, landscaping and trees and things like that. What about other developers? Because this is just, I don't know how long this stretch is that this particular plot is, but what about others? Are they also on board with this kind of enhancement of the trail?
We're kind of fortunate that Andreas represents two of the developers, I think at least, maybe three of them. So she is working with us on that every day. So we are also working with the other developers that are north of this to help with this.
So what's their feedback as far as?
I would say that the developers north of Baptist Road are willing to consider these options, but there are it's particularly practical for this section for the Conexus phase 2 and 3. It makes a lot of sense because you can divert the trail completely around the development. With the other areas, you are kind of the options would take the trail through the industrial commercial areas, and would also involve crossing other internal streets, which somewhat defeats the object of trying to avoid streets crossing the trail. So I would say there's a willingness to consider it and work with the town and the county on these matters, but there are, I would say, different constraints on the areas to the south than there is with this particular parcel.
And we don't want to make the situation worse than it is today.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to make it as safe as possible. And Andrew's working with us on that. And I'm sure when we get comments from the county and stuff like that, we'll get back with the board and tell you exactly where we are on that.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments or motion?
I'd like to motion that we approve the rezone and sketch planned development plan for Conexus phase 2 and 3, ordinance number 20-2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Romero?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, for clarification, who was that made the motion?
Trustee Clark?
Thank you. Trustee Unruh?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
And Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 21-2020, an ordinance approving final plan development site for Woodmore Valley Chapel. Ms. Flynn.
Okay. For ordinance 21-2020, Woodman Valley Chapel Monument Campus Final PD Site Plan. The project location is bordered by I-25 to the east, Old Denver Road to the west, and the undeveloped land to the north and south. It's Lot 1 of Conexus Business Park filing number 1. It's 5.45 acres in size. The final PD site plan. In 2018, an amendment to the preliminary PD site plan for Conexus Business Park filing number 1 added religious facilities and institutions. This church is a 29,694 square feet, 3-story chapel. It will not have any separately licensed school or childcare. However, it will have a future playground. Access and parking. Old Denver Road onto Wagon Bow Way, and then into the site via 2 access points. Patrons will be required to make a right turn only when exiting the church onto Old Denver Road. Town of Monuments Code 17.60.140 would require a church with 642 assembly seats, 161 required parking spaces. However, the church wanted more parking due to the high number of patrons during special events and holiday services, and for those adults arriving in a vehicle with 1 or 2 adults, and due to the overlap between the 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. services. Therefore, they're proposing 394 parking spaces. This will have 1 tree per 10 parking spaces. And this is the picture of the site and the location. And here is another one in color. Traffic concerns for Sunday morning services. Traffic management practices. A volunteer traffic monitor or flagger will be within the site. Monument Police will help direct traffic onto Old Denver Road and Wagon Bow Way. The Santa Fe Trail crossings. Like was said in the previous presentation, there was an MOU in 2008, which the landowner made with El Paso County, granting 6 access points along Old Denver Road. This site will be one of the 6 crossings. These are the renderings of the proposed chapel with the west elevation and east elevation. And this is the north elevation and south elevation. These are their referrals who reviewed and commented on the project. The Planning Commission hearing on August 12, 2020, no one from the public spoke for or against the project, and the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Ordinance 21-2020 Woodman Valley Chapel Monument Campus Final PD Site Plan based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval with the following condition: that the applicant considers the possibility of accommodating the rerouting of the Santa Fe Trail from its current location on the west side of the property to the back of the east side of the property, if the deal could be struck between El Paso County and the town of Monument. Then the applicant are here to answer any questions. They do not have a presentation tonight.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board at this time for the applicant or Ms. Flynn?
I have a question. Since you brought it up about the trail, you said that they would, if it all is approved, they would consider the cost to relocate the trail on their property?
Yes, that was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, and they agreed to considering that.
So if they were to not want to pay for that relocation, what happens to that section of the trail?
The trail will be used as it is as today, and then it will meander back up to the location along I-25.
Along those lines, sorry, did I interrupt or you still have more questions?
No, go right ahead, Trustee Stevens.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted, along those lines, it just reminded me, if they agree to move the trail, does that also have to be approved by the county, or can we get one vote from the county? Maybe that's
Yes.
one vote to say, move the trail for all the developers that are willing to do that. Or do we have to do separate votes every time some plan comes through and then we have to?
We're coming up with a master design for the relocation of the trail, and that's what we're going to ask the county to approve. So
Okay.
it will include this property.
Okay, thank you.
But it would also depend on the county, so it doesn't.
Right.
I don't think whether the developer is willing to is even a question yet if the county
Right.
is not willing to.
Exactly. The county has to approve it. They can't relocate the trail without the county's approval.
I just want to clarify that the Woodman Valley parcel is only one of 2 parcels in filing or section 1 of Conexus. Conexus is really the one that'll be organizing this, and our section of it is actually, when you look at the map, is very, very small. they don't even know who's going to own the other 8-acre parcel that's in the section 1. So, you know, we're on board with cooperating, but there are a lot of moving parts in there. Conexus and you and the county are really the ones that are going to be driving, you know, the steps we take. We just said we'll participate.
Yeah, they're part
Okay.
of the solution.
Thank you. Additional questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I will open it up to the public for anyone who would like to speak for or against this item. Mr. Anderson, do we have any online? Okay, Ms. Wright, do you have an additional comment?
I do not.
Thank you. Ms. Flynn, do we have anybody in the hall? Thank you. Okay, at this point, I will close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 21-2020, an ordinance approving the final plan development site plan for Woodman Valley Chapel Monument Campus.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Flynn. That moves us on to resolutions. Resolution number 32, 2020, a resolution appointing regular and alternate members to the Planning Commission. Ms. Flynn.
Kathy Green sent us an application and asked us to consider her for planning commissioner. She was once an employee of the town of Monument, and she would like to be on the planning commission. And the town does not have an issue with that, and she's retired right now. So she would like to be part of the community again.
I believe in our packets we had 2 different.
Was moving up as an alternate. Martin Chorleo will be moving up as an alternate to a regular full member, and he's currently an alternate. And Kathy Green will be an alternate and planning commissioner. Yes.
Okay.
Did somebody take the role of chairman? And did Melanie completely resign from?
Yes. She resigned at the last meeting. I've been trying to get in contact with her to get an email or a letter for her resignation, and she's not getting back to me. But at the last meeting, and we knew prior to that she was resigning because she's moving into the county. And tomorrow we have our planning commission meeting, and we will be voting on who will become the chairman and co-chairman.
And Martin Trujillo will be able to make that meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Kathy Green will be there as well if she is accepted by you.
Okay. Trustee LeKind, did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, I did, because she's moved.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? I have one question of clarification, and maybe never mind. If there's no further questions, we'll take a motion on this resolution.
I move to approve resolution number 32, 2020, a resolution appointing regular and alternate members to the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. That takes us to resolution number 33, 2020. A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Monument and Tri-View Metropolitan District. Mr. Foreman.
Mayor and board, previously we provided construction inspections for Tri-View Metropolitan District, and we had done these at no cost to Tri-View Metropolitan District. But last year, when I got here, we decided that we probably needed to recover some of those costs. And so we had Tom Martinez track his time that he spent in Tri-View. And so Tri-View decided that they wanted to pay for those services. And so they reimbursed us for a portion of Tom Martinez's time that he spent in Tri-View last year. But at the same time, we realized that we didn't have an IGA with Tri-View that would enforce any of those rules and regulations or requirements for Tom to be over there. And so this IGA kind of sets out a contract for inspection services. The services covered with the IGA are currently being provided by the town. The proposed IGA provides a long-term agreement and mechanism allowing Monument to recover the costs for those required inspections. The physical impact is Tri-View has agreed to pay the hourly cost of Monument inspection staff performing work pursuant to this agreement, while the financial impact will vary based on the amount of inspection services provided. The fees paid will reimburse the town for the cost of the services rendered. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Questions from the board on this agreement? If there are no questions, I will look for a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 33-2020, a resolution approving an IGA between the town of Monument and Tri-View Metropolitan District for inspection services.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second
Several.
by Mayor Pro Tem Elliott. Mr. Romero, will you take roll?
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Resolution number 34, 2020, a resolution authorizing retention of bond counsel for the purpose of advising the town of Monument regarding the selling of 2A water funds revenue bonds. Mr. Foreman, which we clarified are not revenue bonds.
Right, exactly. So they are
COPs.
COPs. Mayor and board, we made several presentations to you about the reason why we want to complete numerous water projects using 2A water fund proceeds, because these projects will cost more money than cash on hand in the 2A fund. Bond financing will be required. The retention of bond counsel is integral in the issuance of bonds. Town staff interviewed numerous bond counsel, and after evaluating the services offerings of each, selected Mr. Nate Eckloff and the firm of Eckloff and Piper Sandler and Company, determining they provided the best value. The services of bond counsel are advisory in nature, and no payment is made unless and until a successful offering of bonds have been made. Bond counsel would be paid out of the proceeds of the bonds sold with their assistance. There's no immediate fiscal impact to the retaining bond counsel. The Board of Trustees would be required to approve the subsequent sale of bonds as proposed by bond counsel. This subsequent approval will be the event triggering payment to counsel. Pursuant to the engagement letter, bond counsel would be paid in two ways after a successful bond offerings: an underwriter fee, which is included here, and then the expenses of the bond counsel. Staff recommends the Board of Trustees approve Resolution 34-2020, approving the retention of Mr. Eckloff and Piper Sandler and Company as bond counsel and authorize the signing of the engagement letter for Mr. Eckloff and Piper Sandler and Company. Staff further believes that this agreement is in the interest of the citizens of the town of Monument.
So just to reiterate, this resolution is just moving us forward in the negotiations and building of this
Exactly. You're just
concept.
retaining a bond counsel. That's all you're doing.
And
So he's going to advise you instead of having staff advise you. You'll now have a bond counsel that's going to advise you on the proper steps to take in the future.
And this will come back before the board before any sort of bond is sold.
Yes, sir. You'll have to, the board will have to approve any kind of bond sales prior to.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? If there are none, I will take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 34-2020, a resolution authorizing retention of bond counsel for the purpose of advising the town of Monument regarding the selling of 2A water fund revenue bonds.
COP bonds, right?
We have a motion.
Does the resolution need to be modified, or does that, any issue with that?
Counsel.
I would not wait for Mr. Ricci, but I do not believe it needs to be modified because we're just moving forward with it.
The council.
We don't have anything
right
defining that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, second.
Okay.
My apologies. Yes, I do agree. This is simply for retaining bond counsel. In the end, what the bond counsel recommends the board do and what the board approves can be anything. It could be revenue bonds. It could be the participation. It could be whatever it is you all decide. So.
Right.
So with that clarified, we do have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Elliott and a second from Trustee Stevens. Just making sure we're
Where I am.
Ms. Romero, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
and Trustee Clark.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 35-2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Mountain Peak Controls LLC to upgrade the SCADA system. Mr. Tharnish.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Resolution in front of you tonight, which will be the first of four that I present to you, is to award a contract to Mountain Peak Controls to provide upgrades of the well treatment plant 3 and 9 SCADA control panels. Mountain Peak Controls has been involved in upgrading all of our treatment plants over the last several years. This one, and we did the previous ones under one simple contract that covered them. But because of the money involved in this one, and this is a little more detailed, we decided to bring this for you as a separate contract resolution to approve a contract. They have been very integral in upgrading our system with our operators, very hands-on. Our SCADA system, as you may know over the years, is very unique. And we brought in SCADA vendors from multiple companies over the years, and Mountain Peak Controls seems to have a pretty good grasp of how this. We have operated a system called Signet, and very intuitive. So we're recommending that you pass this resolution to approve this contract so that we can finish out the SCADA upgrades at this particular plant. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Questions from the board?
Is the money for this already planned in the 2020 budget, or is this kind of above and beyond?
Part of it is in the original budget for 2020, but we do have enough funds available, and that's why under fiscal impact I put that it would actually be divided among two different line items with the enterprise. So overall, this project will fall within the budget for the water enterprise.
Okay.
Additional questions from the board? So the SCADA system is what tracks our water flows and where it's going and where it's everything it's doing.
Yes, it is the supervisory control system for all of our plants, well operations. It tracks all the pressures, tank levels, any alarms that come in. It automatically pages out the on-call water operator. So it's kind of like the heart of our system from an electronic standpoint.
Okay. There are no further questions from the board. We will look for a motion.
I make a motion to pass resolution 35-2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Monument Peak Controls to upgrade the SCADA system control panels at water treatment plants number 3 and 9.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 36-2020, a resolution awarding contract to Concrete Experts LLC. Mr. Tharnish.
Next resolution in front of you is the resolution to award a contract to Concrete Experts LLC for improvements to the intersection of 2nd Street and Washington Street. That intersection has been a line of sight visibility issue for many years. And we have gone around quite a bit to try to come up with different engineered solutions for this. The current plan is to extend the curb lines on the north side of the intersection into 2nd Street so that cars coming through there will have a better line of sight. Currently, if you're heading southbound on Washington, the Chapala building blocks your view, and you have to creep out probably 6 to 8 feet just to see oncoming traffic so you can get across that intersection. This project here is designed to install the latest type of stuff you would do with the MUTCD as far as line of sight goes. And installing curb sections out that far and moving the signs a little bit and is all going to help us along with the improvements we're going to make on the corners. We're going to bring the corners up to ADA standards, which is standard for anytime we do a curb and gutter type work or do a paving type job. We have to upgrade all the existing corners to whatever the standard is at that time for ADA purposes. So this project will improve not only ADA access across that intersection, but it will also help the line of sight issues. And I'd be more than willing to answer any questions you may have on this.
Questions from the board?
How much does it cost and is it in budget?
It cost $84,961 and it is within the capital projects fund for concrete work.
I believe there was an extra 75 cents on there.
And 75 cents.
Sorry. I'm all excited, you know. I get flustered when I get excited.
And this comes from our capital projects fund.
Yes, we have asphalt line items and we have a concrete curb and gutter line item within the capital projects.
Okay. If there are no other questions for the board, we'll look for a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 36-2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Concrete Experts LLC for improvements in the street crossing of the corner of Washington Street and 2nd Street.
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution passes 7-0. Resolution number 37-2020, a resolution awarding a contract to A1 Chip Seal for crack seal operations. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes, this next resolution is a pretty standard project with this type of company, except we're doing the way it described is crack seal operations and not necessarily a chip seal project. What this project amounts to is that we had an ambitious schedule to get a lot of our majority of cracks on our road sealed in before the weather sets in, so that we can buy us some time till it comes time to do a chip seal or to do a paving project. But in order to do that, because of the COVID and the fact that our staff was off quite a bit, that we decided that to get this done in time before we, besides the exception of tonight, but where the real hard weather sets in, we just don't have enough time and personnel to complete this. So we went out and had A1 Chip Seal look at this project and see, gave them a limit. We want to get as much as we can get for about $25,000, which is what the what we had planned to spend on that particular type of operation. A1 Chip Seal has done many projects for us over the year, have an excellent reputation, and they're pretty efficient at what they do. Again, this project is critical for trying to save our roads and buy us some more time as we get further along in our 5-year plan. I'll take any questions you have on this particular project.
So can you go over again, are we replacing this with what we were going to do ourselves?
Well, what we're doing is we can't, based on our 3-person streets crew, they're busy doing the same type of operation, but we just can't get the roads that we needed to get done in time before about mid-October when the ground's cold enough that it's tough to do this kind of operation. So we thought in order to save time and to get back on schedule, we contracted out this portion of it. If I had more time in the season or additional personnel, we've got it further, we may not have needed this. It's rare that we will contract out a crack seal operation. Most of the time, what we contract out are chip seals, which is a complete road surface project, or we do a paving, or rip out and replace with an overlay.
Okay, I think I understand that. But
Right.
So my question would lead more to if we had enough staff
Yep.
to do this, would it still be this amount coming out of capital projects?
No, because we would not have to contract it out. We would do it ourselves. But because of the lateness in the year and the weather closing in, the only way to get the roads that we had planned to crack seal, because we inventory everything in the spring. So we choose what roads are in the worst condition, what can we do to buy us time, or is it a candidate for a complete replacement? So then we build our plan for that, and then we project out 5 years as to which roads are going to need an overlay, which are going to need a chip seal, and which just need some crack seal. And again, crack seal is just that rubber gooey stuff you see when you drive down the road. It looks like a patchwork. It's what helps save the roads for at least a couple of years before we get to that chip seal or overlay type project.
So I guess I would still be concerned why this is coming out of the capital funds project. If we would have done it ourselves, we would have paid for it out of our regular budget.
It would have come out of a maintenance line item under asphalt repairs.
So why isn't it?
Well, asphalt repairs is still under the capital projects fund.
So it is coming out of the same.
It is just a different line item. It's the same pot of money.
You have to remember last year we made a change in the budget line items to where we transferred some money that was going to the general fund into the capital projects fund. And so this top work qualifies for that funding versus in the past it probably didn't.
So
But
we're
it
doing
does
that
today.
to save money then.
To what?
So we're doing that to save money then from our regular road maintenance line item?
I don't think it's to save money. It's to get what I hear Tom saying and what he's told me is it's to get the job done quicker. So because we don't have enough staff, we're just paying it out of the capital projects fund instead of the general fund.
And
because
that's what I'm asking. Why are we doing that?
Because last year we made the change to where that money was going into the general fund. So it might have gone into his maintenance line item. Today, HUFTA monies, road and bridge fees, and what else? What's the other one?
Public works facility design.
The use tax is all going in the capital project funds. So this qualifies to be able to use that funding. that has to be dedicated to the capital project funding. That money.
In other words, if we'd have done this ourselves, the cost of the material would have come out of the same line item. Would have been under asphalt repairs.
The
Okay.
labor would have been
We
done
just-
by them instead of the contract.
Which
it was
would
still
come from a different line item.
would have come out of payroll because the labor would have been them instead of the contractor. But the materials would have still come out of capital projects.
Okay.
I want to ask a clarifying question. Is what you're asking that having them do it versus us having our people and our materials do it kind of a wash, or is it equitable at all?
No,
Are
I'm just
you kind of going that way or not at all, or no?
what I was getting at is if we did it one way, okay. If we did it ourselves, it comes from line item A. Right?
Right. If we did it
If we-
ourselves, it would be the cost of materials would come out of capital project. Their cost of labor would have come out of their payroll. So it would have been, we would have just been paying employees to do the work. Today, the way they're doing it is they're hiring a contractor. So the contractor's cost of labor and cost of material comes out of the capital project fund.
So we save money in labor.
No,
We save money in payroll.
Or,
I see
that's
what
what I
you're
mean.
saying.
That's
We
what I
save
mean,
money in payroll. Yeah, his payroll won't be charged. But at the same time, you can't say it's a savings because we're still paying them.
Spending.
Yeah, because they're doing other jobs.
You're
So
spending
it-
money that was intended for another capital project.
Yeah, they're still doing other, like Tom said, they're still out there crack sealing other roads that they can't get to
That's
without
not the
having
question.
to do what?
That's not the question.
Yeah,
I'm just
confused.
asking why the money's coming from one place versus another.
Because we're using a contractor. We can't pay the contractor out of payroll. We have to pay him out of capital projects funds.
So then does the money that would have gone to payroll, the money from payroll that would have taken care of staff for doing this project, does that go to capital projects?
No, because we still have to pay the employee. We can't, even though they're not doing this project, they're still getting paid. So they get a check every other Friday. So we can't, there's no savings there for the payroll line item.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
See, I move that we pass resolution 37/2020, resolution awarding contract to A1 Chip Seal for crack sealing operations on various streets throughout the town road system.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Second was Trustee LeKind. Mrs. Romero.
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Resolution number 38/2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Martin Marietta for paving operations. Mr. Tharnish.
Yes,
Is
last,
this the same reasoning just before you start of the previous resolution?
no.
Okay.
Close, but no. A resolution in front of you is for actual paving operations, which is basically a remove and replace, or what they call R&R type of project. Again, this is based upon a priority system that we've developed over the years, based on how severe the roads are coming out of winter when we do our spring evaluation. This year, the roads in particular that we're going to do are Jefferson Street North of 3rd Street, 4th Street, 5th Street, and then a couple of minor projects that have become a priority, but they're minor in nature. So they're the less of the whole project, less cost of the whole project. This project is the same contractor that did the Jackson Creek area for Triview, and we were able to establish either the same or a lower price per unit on this. which is sometimes how we do these. Sometimes we end up bidding them out, but when we have another government contract that we can take advantage of through our purchasing policy, it saves us money and time in the long run because we get that guaranteed price. Now this one here, Martin Marietta, again, what we're looking at here, we've used Martin Marietta in the past. I believe it's been a couple of years, but they, again, pretty competitive and trying to keep in line with our 5-year street improvement plan. This is the next set of roads to get done. Are there any questions? I'd be glad to take any questions you might have.
Questions from the board? If there are no questions, we'll take a motion.
I make a motion to pass Resolution 38, 2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Martin Marietta for paving operations on various streets throughout the town.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Second by Trustee Stevens. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Unruh,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. This now takes us to
Mayor, if I may, I'd just like to thank Tom Tharnish on getting all these projects to the board and getting those approved. He's been working hard to get these done. We put him off during the year because of COVID-19, and he has been very steady at making sure that we keep these on the books and bring those to the board for you to approve. So Tom's done a great job of making sure that we get this work done for the city.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Tharnish. This takes us to back to item number 6, broadband discussion. Ms. Clark, you have the floor, or Trustee Clark, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson and Board of Trustees. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present a statement supporting a Town of Monument fiber broadband feasibility study. Earlier this year, the Town of Monuments voters overwhelmingly passed an exemption to Senate Bill 152, allowing the town to increase competition, provide basic broadband to all of our residents, improve telecommunication service, and hopefully reduce the cost of broadband internet. Now, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, which we all are finding to be quite extensive, the demand for our people to work from home, along with greater demand for broadband services, has skyrocketed. But we're still stuck with essentially a couple of single, large private monopolies offering what's been described as mediocre and expensive internet services by our residents. Many of our citizens have asked me where we are at in the process to increase our choices here in Monument. Again, thanks to their unprecedented support of the Town of Monument's desires to have broadband, we now have the ability to encourage a variety of private sector telecommunication providers to help attract jobs relating to our region's growing space operations, high-tech, and cyber industries. Unfortunately, the town has done very little to advance what must be interpreted as a clear mandate to do all we can to improve our telecommunications future, which is understandable in light of the pandemic we've all had to deal with this year. What we now need is a comprehensive vision to understand what role, if any, the Town of Monument should play in advancing broadband services. Shortly after the City of Fountain and the City of Manitou Springs and El Paso County voters approved their SB 152 exemptions, they created roadmaps to understand the best role for their communities to play in this fast-changing technology arena. For example, I understand the City of Fountain completed a broadband visioning study and is now exploring a citywide fiber optic-based broadband system which will make it Southern Colorado's first gigabit city, attracting certainly thousands of new high-paying jobs. Manitou Springs likewise created a vision for their community and now enjoys an incredible city-owned fiber optic network of more than 100,000 feet of new fiber optic cable installed just in the last few months. Now, as better broadband becomes available, Fountain and Manitou Springs can accelerate its deployment, partner with the private sector, generate new revenues, and thanks to choosing the safest fiber optic backbone, they can even reduce any possible exposure to any hazardous radiation in their communities. And you may recall reading on the front page of the Gazette, El Paso County also completed a broadband feasibility study shortly after their voters approved their ballot item. That study noted that much of northern El Paso County remains underserved and is in need of improved broadband. The county has used that roadmap to understand the best ways to work in partnership with CDOT and other agencies to expand fiber optic cables throughout the county. Again, allowing the potential to increase broadband service. Still, their efforts have largely been focused on the unincorporated areas to date. More importantly, plans that serve the city of Fountain, Manitou Springs, or the county may or may not work well in Monument, and we need to chart our own telecommunications future. In talking with our town manager, Mr. Foreman, I understand he too has been deeply involved in efforts in his past life to accelerate broadband, and I'm sure he understands the value and importance of developing a plan or a vision for how the town of Monument should best move forward in this area. My point is, like our nearby cities, our voters have shown their support to the town of Monument to get involved in improving broadband service to its residents. I would urge you to support a line item in our 2021 budget to study what would work best for Monument. And lastly, I understand that the U.S. Congress is considering the possibility of spending perhaps $20 billion and possibly as much as $80 billion in the form of grants to improve broadband throughout the country. From past experience, I understand cities who are shovel ready may be best positioned to obtain what may be large federal grants for broadband. Of course, much of this is difficult to predict, but it shows a willingness for the federal government to help improve broadband, and we should be doing all we can to position the town of Monument for the possibility as well. In short, telecommunications service is to the 21st century what our highway and utility systems were to the 20th century. They're a necessity, not a luxury, and we need to keep positioning our community for the future. I have several details that I have sent to all of you to look at as far as what this visioning study should look like. And I won't go over it here and now, but you can read through those notes. But I do know that costs for such a broadband study vary widely. So El Paso County paid about $150,000 for theirs. I would suggest we include an amount of $95,000 for a comprehensive study in 2021. Thank you for your time, and I would like to make a motion on this if there is time in the agenda.
Sorry. Do we have further discussion on this item? Any other board comments?
I have some comments. First, I'd like to preface this by stating that in a past life, I used to be a part owner of a wireless internet service provider in Tempe, Arizona. After a couple of years, the company was sold off to Airband Communications, which is a very, very large national wireless backhaul company. So I have experience in the deployment of high-speed internet to both commercial, industrial, and residential applicants, customers. So I've been studying this SB 152 bill since it was first brought to my attention in October of last year. And I've got some takeaways after speaking with the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for both Comcast and CenturyLink. And I have calls out to, and those are just two incumbent LECs that have service in the Monument area. And I've got calls out to the same folks at Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile Sprint to determine their game plans for 5G broadband deployment. As to the email that we received early on to this afternoon, sort of just before the meeting, I want to state that when the question was asked to the people about Senate Bill 152 to allow the town of Monument to remove themselves from the overwatch of that bill from the state, there was absolutely zero information provided to the public on the town's website, and there was no blue book, as there was no obligation to provide one by the town on what this question meant. I believe that majority of the residents were not informed as to what they were getting themselves into by answering yes or no to this question. To the point about demand for broadband, there are two national companies that offer gig services throughout Monument proper. One is a Monument-based provider that utilizes Canopy Wireless with a fiber optics backbone. For a town of 10,000 people, give or take, and we'll wait for the census to confirm, I am wondering how many more choices are needed to provide broadband? And is it the position that the study will eventually lead to the town competing with these 6 companies? Because if that's the case, I will never vote for a nickel to go towards this study or that the town becomes a ISP. As to the various towns that were listed as being gone through these studies, the city of Fountain, and this was left out, I don't know if it was conveniently or an oversight, but the city of Fountain has their own utility company which can subsidize government-owned networks, which allows them to get lower interest rate loans, as well as the fact that the high-paying jobs that are going to be down there, which I've spoken to several realtors in the Monument area, no one really with high-paying jobs is moving to Fountain for, I think everybody knows, obvious reasons. There was also a comment in the email regarding northern El Paso County and the fact that they have limited broadband capabilities. And if by northern El Paso County you're referring to unincorporated areas, I can't argue that point because I know people who live in those areas and they do not have excellent bandwidth. But to that point, Comcast has provided me with information that stated very clearly they provide at least 1 gig services to all service areas that they have within the town of Monument proper, not counting other areas within the 80132 zip code. Their current standard, which is DOCSIS 4.0, is in the process of being upgraded throughout all homes over regular coax, which will provide symmetrical streaming and download speeds in the 10 gig range and upload speeds in the 6 gig range. CenturyLink, they are really not in the business in our area to provide competitive gig services unless these neighborhoods have been identified as newer. So, for example, Sanctuary Point does have fiber optics to the home. Village Center at Woodmore has fiber optics to the home. And there was a couple other neighborhoods, I believe the one up against the lake, Monument Lake, I don't know what that neighborhood's called, but they also were listed as gigabit ready with fiber optics to the home. There is absolutely zero reason why the town of Monument should be investing and investigating what it would take for Monument to become an internet provider. Based on the core requests I made related to this topic to the town, it is clear that the intention is that we will generate some form of revenue, which I don't understand. Our government should not be in the business of being in business competing with 6 national companies that are either providing gig services today or will be providing 5G services tomorrow. Examples of where this has failed miserably, Longmont has been having complications since they began, where they secured $7 million loans via their own electric utility company. Greeley has had 5 years they've spent $500,000 on 4 different consultants on feasibility studies. Then they were faced with a $120 million bond cost to build out this network, and the city leaders balked and instead chose to work with the incumbent providers on solutions to the perceived problems. And just within the last month, Fort Collins was lambasted across the Complete Colorado website for all of the plans that they have gone through to deliver a broadband experiment that does not perform as planned and has less than a 30% saturation rate. So my call here is that if we are going to do anything, it is to work with only the incumbent LECs or small businesses such as Force Broadband or others that present themselves to have better access to right of way and existing conduit so they can deploy their networks. But I would not agree to spend money on the town ever becoming an internet provider to compete with these other companies.
Okay, do we have any comments from any other board members?
Yes, I'd like to ask Trustee Clark, because different studies are so different from each other and how they're designed and what's involved and how long they take and how extensive they are. I'd like to know how you came to $95,000 for your feasibility study in regards to that particular recommendation. And secondly, I did not receive an email from you that you mentioned that was sent out prior to the meeting. So I guess it was just sent to a select few.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Clark, if you are speaking, you are still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Gosh, my button says mute and unmute the opposite way. I apologize. So I'm going to respond to Trustee LaKine first. I'm a firm believer in competitive free markets. So I am not in any way suggesting that the town of Monument be involved in competing against private industry. I have been receiving extensive calls from residents who voted for more choice and want more choice. And while I'm hoping they will all be listening to this amount of information that you've given might persuade them not to want that choice, but it was quite a landslide vote. Over 1,600 people voted yes out of the 1,690 people who totally voted. So I am bringing forth their choice and their vote for the town board to consider, them being able to have more choice. A feasibility study will provide answers for them, not necessarily that Monument, the town itself, needs to do anything else, but whatever that feasibility study produces, it would be interesting to note that all of the towns around us have begun and implemented or are currently utilizing the results of their votes from their choices, from their citizens in their towns. I was unaware of the fact that Longmont was having issues, but I will check into that. But I hope I've made myself really clear that it's not my position to have the town of Monument do anything outside of a feasibility study to see if there's anything that can be done or if there's anything we should do, but support the vote of the people. And then I'm going to move on to, I don't know if I covered everything, Trustee LaKine, but if I've forgotten something, you can remind me.
Can I ask you one question just before you move on?
Sure.
The core request included all emails between yourself and the town staff related to the broadband topic. There is a specific email in question. I believe it was dated sometime this year, but I'd have to go back and look through the 60 pages or so. You specifically provided a mathematical formula that showed increased revenue over $1 million that would be gained by the town by charging people for broadband services in the town. Is that no longer your position, or?
That, okay, that was an example that I gave should the town of Monument want to compete. It was based on several other private industries. I use that as an example. It has never been my position that government supersede private industry.
Okay, thank you very much for answering that.
You're welcome. And if I can move on to Mayor Pro Tem Elliott's questions, let me see if I can remember them. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, would you mind?
Yeah, the budget of 95,000, you know, studies are designed so differently depending on the work involved, the length of time, the number of people, et cetera. So I wanted to find out how you came up with a $95,000 budget, if that's something that the town needs to consider for a feasibility study.
And then you also asked another question. Oh, about the email. Okay, I delivered that email to the town manager and asked him to disperse it to everyone on the board. I'm sorry you did not receive that. I'm sure he can make sure you get that. And I apologize for your not.
Oh, okay, I was looking under your name. I will recheck my email and see if I have one from Mr. Foreman.
Yeah, I didn't want to break the sunshine laws. And I was told that by delivering it to the town manager or one of the staff, they could distribute.
I do have it from Mr. Foreman. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. And I had talked to several commissioners at the last CML meeting, and I have spoken or texted, I believe, and spoken to Commissioner Williams. And based on all of the input I've received from all of them, I took that and made that an average and subtracted out a little bit for moving forward. Should the feasibility study say that the town of Monument would have the ability to actually help the people get further choices available to them. So it was through several commissioners and mayors and council members and trustees from people I have met at CML that I arrived at that 95,000. I'll be happy to send you a breakdown of that if I can dig that up again.
That would be great. And then I have one add-on question in regards to the 1,650 people that you've heard from. Do you have that somewhere compiled that you can share that with the town manager?
Well, I was talking about that 1,600 people that voted in this last, on that ballot question that said, yes, they want more choice. I understand that it's Trustee LaKind's position that they didn't know what they were getting, but most of those people in that landslide vote are very educated people. They understood that we were trying to get back our local control, and in doing so, having local control back would open up the feasibility of receiving more choices for broadband, and they do not like, with a deep dislike of the current providers of service. So they wanted their choice back. And so I was referring to that. I was referring to those voters that have already made their voices known and were calibrated. I think that possibly Mrs. Hogan could provide you with a breakdown, maybe that's further than that, but I don't know.
No, that's okay. I understand. I did not realize you were talking about a ballot initiative. I thought that you were talking about a personal poll that you've taken. So there's no further information needed if that was the ballot initiative.
That would be correct.
Okay, additional comments on this discussion? I would just say myself that I don't think government should be involved in free markets. I know that Trustee Clark reemphasized that, but this would be attempting to get in charge or getting involved when I don't think it's a good idea. And just sitting here, I came up with the example of Comcast has doubled their speeds for the same prices since the passing of Senate Bill 152. The legislation itself was to remove the city from the state's view of broadband and to have more municipal control. Doesn't mean the municipality plans on doing anything. They just have that control. So if there are no other comments, Trustee Clark, did you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Just a discussion on.
She can make a motion anytime.
Okay.
Go ahead, Trustee Clark.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, my mute and my unmute button is really messed up. And I'm not sure why. So I'd like to make a motion to put a line item on the budget for 2021 for a broadband feasibility study for the amount of $95,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, if there is no second, that motion dies.
Mayor, can I clarify direction then? Since that motion died, would that mean that the instructions to the town manager is not to follow up on broadband?
I would assume that I would say that's the consensus.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on. Public comment. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. If you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand, or please raise your hand on your app in the participate section. Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comments? Okay. Miss Flynn, do we have anybody in the hallway? Okay. Okay, will you go ahead and move him? Mr. Hamilton, as soon as your audio is connected, you can speak. It is not showing connected yet. Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody else waiting to speak? Okay, I'm going to move forward, and will you let me know as soon as Mr. Hamilton's audio is connected? Board authorization items, I-25 GAP project update, Ms. Romero. Is there a date scheduled for that, or are you guys just looking to do a presentation?
Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, the information I have pertaining to the I-25 GAP update is permission from Miss Madeline Vanderhook. If we can put this on a future agenda, possibly the next meeting. It's regarding a PR firm who would like to know if we, staff or board, would like a presentation on the, oh, I apologize. This is the one that they are requesting if we would like for them to come give an update to the board regarding the I-25 GAP project like they have in the previous months. As we move into fall, Monument Hill will have a few impacts, and they can come in person or do virtual.
Okay. My suggestion would be we turn that presentation or the scheduling of that presentation over to Mr. Foreman to make sure it gets on an appropriate agenda and not
overloaded.
An overloaded agenda or too shy of agenda, if that's okay with the board. Okay, I'll get to him in just a moment. If there is no comment with doing it that way, I will assume the rest of the board members agree.
Yes.
So please have Mr. Foreman schedule that at the appropriate meeting. At this time, Mr. Hamilton's audio is connected. Mr. Hamilton, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Hey, it's Dan Hamilton, Force Broadband. I am here just to see if you guys have any questions about internet in the area. We cover the whole town. We have fiber all over and wireless. And I just wanted to say I'm here if you guys have any questions.
Okay. Do any of the board members have any broadband questions for Mr. Hamilton?
What company are you with again?
Force Broadband?
Force Broadband, okay.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, at this time, I'll ask anybody who has further questions to contact you on or offline so that we can go ahead and close the public comment portion.
Sounds perfect. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm. Continuing with board authorization items. Arts Month proclamation, September 21st. I do not. Go ahead, Ms. Romero.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. It's just a request to have an Arts Month proclamation at the end of September's calendar and by Mr. Andy Vick, and he would request to do it virtually.
Okay. For those of you who are not aware, Mr. Vick he's come for the past couple years. We do this every year. They usually give a short presentation on what's going on in the art community between North El Paso County on down through Colorado Springs and surrounding areas. Is the board okay with September 21st art proclamation presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're good there. Fountain Creek Watershed request Short Creek Week presentation on the 21st also. Ms. Romero?
The information, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, the information I have regarding Creek Week is this year it's their 7th annual Creek Week cleanup happening September 26th through October 4th. And they're requesting to show a 30-second video and speak to the town about this year's cleanups and they would request virtually as well.
Okay. Again, this is another one that people from the Fountain Creek watershed come each year and do a little presentation on Creek Week. Is the board comfortable with doing this on the 21st? If I recall, it was a very short presentation last year. Is the board in agreement?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Foreman, will you be handling the next one?
Yes, sir.
Annexation of a 0.071 acre parcel.
Hey, we're moving along with our annexation plan.
Talk about growth.
Yeah, this is just an out parcel.
Oh,
Is Larry online? Okay.
I did not know Larry was with us. Mr. Manning, go ahead. Mr. Manning, if you are talking, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now? Am I coming through okay?
Yes.
Well, good evening, first trustees. I think that Mr. Foreman has a little more background. I certainly can proceed if he'd like, or he can just go ahead and outline what we're trying to do. It doesn't say on the agenda, but we're trying to get this on the September 21st board meeting as well.
Yes, Mayor of the board. This annexation is a little parcel of land that the property owner gained through legal efforts, and she wants to bring it into the town so that she can sell that as part of her property. And she would like to get this done as soon as possible because I think the sale of her house and this land is being held up until this can be annexed into the town.
So her property is in two different districts, such as the county and the town.
Exactly. Her house is in the town, I take it, and then this parcel right here is an out parcel that is in the county. And so we're going to bring it out of the county into the town.
Okay.
Just so she can sell that parcel along with her property.
Does the board have any issues with that being on the 21st also? Okay. We will move on. Approval of Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District.
Mayor and the board, on this one, this is the property that CSI owns that is north of the Walmart, and they have taken that to Tri-View's Metro District and got approval from their Metro District board to create a commercial Metro District on top of the Tri-View Metro District. And they would like to come to the board on September 21st to have the board consider approval of Jackson Creek Commercial Metropolitan District.
Did they say what the purpose of that was?
Yes, to be able to pay for infrastructure that is included in the development of that property, such as water, sewer, and roads.
Okay.
So how does that work with an existing, I mean, I guess we'll get into it the 21st.
Yes, sir. We'll have a full presentation and they'll be here for that.
We have an existing Metro District and a commercial Metro District building on an existing Metro
Right,
District.
and the total mill levy is quite high.
Yeah, it would be
154 mills.
What?
What? I don't know who that is.
154 mills. Oh my God.
I don't think that's funny.
What?
I'm assuming this property will stay vacant for another 10 to 20 years.
But they have a plan. We'll
right.
bring the plan to you.
Is this going to overstack this meeting? Other stuff's been pretty brief. Do you have any other big things on this?
I do have one more besides this one too.
What was Mr. Romanella's question we couldn't hear?
sorry, is our meeting next time going to be very overstacked with all the, I mean, the other ones are very brief, but with it, do we have any other big things besides this commercial metro district that's going to make this cumbersome?
Ms. Romero is going to bring up the agenda and review that with you real quick.
Okay.
As of right now, before I bring up the draft agenda for September 21st, we have the 2 presentations that you all just approved to be on the 21st. The last one, there's a little bit of flexibility since that event goes to October 4th. If that's something maybe you want to kick down the road.
What event?
The Fountain Creek watershed request.
Wasn't that only going to be like
30 seconds.
30-second video? And like
It is.
Okay.
And
Are there any other big ordinances or any other big things that are going to take like massive amounts of time?
do we have a work session? Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
I think so. So
I apologize for that. We will have a budget work session that day. At 5. 5, most likely.
Oh, so there's going to be a budget workshop at 5. Okay.
And I have an ordinance by Larry Manning, intersection 2nd Street and North Front Street. That would
the short one.
you just approved.
Yeah.
And then Jackson Creek, which you just approved. Some approvals of the 2019 audit would be up for a resolution. A resolution approving the state of Colorado IGA for the Jackson Creek Parkway. A resolution supporting the Town of Monuments GOCO grant application for the relocation of the Santa Fe Trail. That's
Didn't we just do an IGA? Oh, that was with driving. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I do have one more, Mayor.
Okay.
And Ms. Romero just mentioned it. We need to have a resolution approving staff to apply for a GOCO grant for the relocation of Santa Fe Trail to the east side of the commercial development.
Why would the board approve you applying for a grant?
We have to, the grant requires a resolution from the board.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the application process. And like we mentioned earlier, it still may be the county applying for the grant. And so we're just doing this just in case.
Okay. And you said that's a resolution?
Yes, sir.
So we have 2 resolutions, an ordinance. Is Jackson Creek a resolution or an ordinance?
I'm showing 2 ordinances, 3 resolutions, and 2 presentations. 4 resolutions, adding Tom's.
So the ordinances we have on the agenda are the annexation of 0.071 acres and Jackson Creek.
Correct.
Those are the 2 ordinances.
Correct.
And then 4 resolutions.
Correct.
2
presentations.
2 presentations.
2 presentations.
Okay, I do think that should be the stopping point there, if you guys agree.
That's including this Jackson Creek commercial.
That's including the Jackson Creek.
I would agree with that.
And a budget workshop right before.
Okay, can we, on that budget workshop, can you maybe look over the time? We've been finishing those a lot earlier than we expected, and we've allotted a lot of time, and I know it keeps board members here longer than they need to be.
We can start at 5:30.
I mean, I'm saying just make sure you go over what we have and and see what kind of time you think it's going to take.
Okay, I'll discuss that with Ms. Holmes.
I mean, we're kind of got a feeling now of the past couple of workshops that they're not taking as long.
Right.
Is the rest of the board good with this outlook?
I am.
Yes, I am, but I think the last budget workshop only took 30 minutes.
Correct. Trustee LeKind?
I was agreeing.
Okay. Trustee Unruh?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. Has Trustee Clark left the call? Or am I missing? Okay. Moving forward, Board of Trustee comments. Do we have any? If we have none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.